Okay, we are back from recess. Senator Brown, you still have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the fact that we're moving forward on this issue, and I would like to begin if the clerk could provide us an outline of the process and procedures that she goes through on the floor of the legislature with regards to legislation, so that we can find out how we got in the situation in the first place of language being included that was not part of the original bill. I think that would be helpful to start with that first. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Brown. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Senator. Particularly to Bill number 130-36LS. On September 24th, 2021, Bill number 130-36LS was moved to the bottom of the second reading. On September 28th, the members resolved into the Committee of the Whole to begin discussion on Bill number 130, approximately about 3:13. There was a motion to accept substituted version of Bill number 130 with no objection. At 3:16, discussion begins. On that day at 4:47, Committee of the Whole was recessed until 9 a.m. the following day. On September 29, Committee of the Whole reconvened and continued discussion with panel. Actions regarding Bill number 130 as substituted. At 9:45 a.m., floor amendment number 1, sponsored by Speaker Terlahi, proffered to add the words regardless of the time to line 25, page 3 of the bill. At the same time, a technical amendment was proffered by Senator Perez to allow legal corrections to the bill, correcting public law, the number 144 to 114. That was passed with no objection. And at the same time, Senator Blas proffered an amendment to amend the word time of death to date of death. With no objection, the floor amendment passed. At 10:36, a point of order was raised by Senator Blas challenging the language, and the chair ruled that the language was materially different. And a motion by Speaker Terlahi to overrule the chair was failed. At 11:40 a.m., a motion with the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole to place Bill number 130LS as substituted and amended in the Committee of the Whole to the third reading file carried with no objection. On 9:30, September 30th, 2020, we began the engrossment process. At 9:02 a.m., all floor amendments proffered were placed in the floor version of Bill number 130-36LS. The floor amendment included FA1, which was the amendment ruled out of order by Speaker, formatted for technical corrections, and at the same time, that version, it's called a floor version, was converted to the working file. In this working file, the clerk's office would usually remove all uploaded on the drive for all other members to review. And that was our process with Bill 130 as substituted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Brown?
So I just wanted to ask in that process, how did we get inadvertent language that was never passed by the floor to be included in the bill? How did that transact?
That language that particular floor amendment had a technical, and one of the procedures in the clerk's office is that whenever there's a change, that it is to show, there is a markup version that would show. That language was there to show that there was a technical in that language, but that technical applied to the bill in its entirety.
So how do you distinguish to make sure you don't have language-specific wording that was not authorized or passed by the body to be included in the bill?
Thank you. We track comments. We have a running log of floor amendments, passed, failed. This one was particularly out of order. The floor amendments with the ledger are usually attached to it. When we submit them to the legal bureau, or initially my first review would be the senior staff, they would compare the language that's there. And it wasn't clear and it wasn't questioned at the time, because even myself, when I took a look at the floor amendment, I compared it. And when I noticed that the comment only indicated that there was a technical amendment that was there, my approach with it was that the language regardless time of death was not highlighted nor commented. If there was a comment placed there indicating failed, withdrawn, or out of order, particularly for this one, I would have flagged it and did the corrections, but that was one of the...
So who normally would put that, who normally would have put that language on the document, or so that you would know that because it's a very specific amendment that was made by the speaker that the chairman ruled, substantially different in terms of substance, and did not entertain further with regards to that amendment. So why was that notation not there in this? Because obviously you know that this has added such significant impact. I mean, you couldn't have added more zeros onto this issue that, again, was not, and that's the concern, is how did we get here and how do we not get here again? How is that not noted? Because you guys do something interesting I've never experienced, and this is my 7th term. The previous 6 terms, I've never been called by the clerk of the legislature to confirm any amendment I've ever made on the floor. Normally that is done, and of course maybe a little different because we're electronic these days, but normally that piece of paper comes to me on the floor, and I read it, and I verify yes, indeed. And it's normally after it's passed, I'll initial off on it, and it goes back up to the clerk, and that's the official record that I've already confirmed. So I've never been called after the fact while a bill's being engrossed, except this term. And I don't give a lot of amendments, as you've noticed, but so it's unique to me. It registers that I'm being asked to review to verify that that's indeed my amendment. So that's an extra step that you take that I've never experienced before. So how did this, what action was taken to verify if there was a technical issue, or where did this come from, to go back and find out from the author where did this come from? Because obviously that to me was a significant. I've been asked even after we last session, oh, you guys have included this. I said, no, absolutely not. I was there. It was not entertained and didn't go anywhere. So how is that not registered from your position as the clerk physically in the session hall while these issues are being debated, to have something that's a technical whatever issue being brought up and not have clarity to it, realizing that it had significant impact on the whole content of the bill itself?
Thank you. So I do have a staff member that works on inputting all floor amendments discussed on the floor. And then it transitions to another staff member that works up what we call, again, the working version. As far as the floor amendment, it was placed where it should be, and then when it transitioned, the comment that was left there was specific to a technical. So the focus was that language was there. As far as the proofreading of the language that was there was somewhat of an oversight.
So what was the technical word? I mean, ultimately, who's in charge? Who ultimately determines what language goes in the bill? I mean, you could have several staff under you, but who ultimately is supposed to be up here during session keeping track of what transpires and what's added, what's amended, what's withdrawn? Who's in charge of doing that?
It's a working process for everyone. We have our checklist or checks and balances, that's in there. Once a floor amendment is placed there, the amendment we would know her as an amendment clerk or the individual as an amendment clerk. She places that in. When that language is there, then we have staff member, we print out the bill with the floor amendment, and then we have staff members proofread what's there.
But I understand, but then who ultimately is keeping track of what transpires during session? Somebody's got to have order to what is happening. I mean, any one of us can make an amendment to a bill, add, amend, change, whatever the case may be, but somebody here has to be tracking all of that. Are you telling me it goes from one person to another, and
It usually
how would you get caught at your level to determine? Because you're telling me a technical, but that's a big technical error. That's why I'm not clear with that. Who ultimately is tracking what transpires during session?
That would be myself, and the procedures itself allows you to cross-check. Like if one floor amendment's missed or is misplaced or needs to be there, there's a next step that allows you to cross-check from comparing floor amendments passed, the ledger, a working markup that would allow you to do those cross-checks. In this particular process, timing was a lot of to the essence, because I only have one staff member who works on the floor version and then the other on the working. This process was not just by myself or the individuals in this working process, but as soon as we were done with these floor amendments, we've met those procedures with an oversight of that one particular, it was a paragraph language that was there, that was placed there. And that was the big oversight on my office that we.
Senator Brown, if I may chime in a bit, I want to clarify a little bit. I think what you're mentioning when you say technical, you're talking about there's a comment that's on the working document, right? It's like a Word document, and there's a comment on it that says make technical amendments. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Make technical corrections. So often when we make motions and we make amendments, we'll throw in something, and for legal to make technical corrections or something to that effect.
That's
right?
correct.
So that comment that was in there threw someone off in the process, right? They thought that that amendment was the technical amendment that was supposed to go in. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
So I just wanted to explain because
It was placed there inadvertently to indicate that there was a motion made on the floor that allows legal to make a technical correction. When that was placed there, moving along to the next individual didn't realize that that language was not supposed to be there.
I understand, but again, I mean, who ultimately has to make that determination of what transpires on the floor? Because again, in the history of the legislature, this is very unusual. You know, we've had other clerks that have sat in this position. I understand, Mr. Chair, but I just want to point that out, and I can't, well, because 2 or 3 other people are looking at it, and they didn't know. I mean, we can't be uninformed, especially if that's our key job, because I'm a little concerned now I'm being asked to be a proofreader. And unfortunately, probably for the rest of this term, I'm going to have to be for my own sense of comfort, which is totally unnecessary because it's not, in the history of the legislature, the normal process, even though I see public statements being made that every senator missed this. I mean, we have key people here. That is the main job that they're supposed to perform. So if that slips through, if this was a little technical mistake, it had some substantial impact to the whole intent of the bill that has caused a lot of upheaval, particularly because of the subject matter and the impact of what this represents, and more importantly, because it's not language that was ever authorized by the body. So I just want to relay that, Mr. Chair, because that's very concerning, and then I'm sure after our other colleagues perhaps have questions, maybe the next round can be what is being done to correct moving forward so that we don't end up in this situation of this being reviewed from one to the other, and then we end up with something that's totally unauthorized by the body. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Atta.